Do you have a cutoff time just so I don't go along with any of my answers?
You want to do an hour, or is that
That's
too long, too
perfect.
short?
That's
Okay, cool.
perfect.
We'll keep it then. Keep it an hour. Let's
Yeah.
see this.
I'll tweet about this now, or I'll post on Instagram.
All right, welcome. Can you guys hear me out there? You're listening to Jay's analysis. I'm here with Wicca Phase Springs Eternal. Can you hear me? So make sure the audio is right before we start yapping and people are like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. I'll talk a little bit in case yours is loud and clear and mine isn't for any reason.
All right, I think we're good. All right, welcome. You're listening to Watching Jay's Analysis, and I want to thank Wicca Springs for coming on. And what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. First question, how did you come up with this name? I know you've probably been asked that a million times, but I can't not ask you that.
It's okay. I didn't come up with it. I demoed some songs that would eventually become Wicca Phase songs, and at the time I was into like net art a lot, like Tumblr, 3D graphic, PNG stuff, and there was some blogger that I followed, and I emailed her the songs. I didn't really know her that well, but she had a good aesthetic, and I asked her if she had any name suggestions, and the email that she sent back just said Wicca Phase Springs Eternal. And how
So
can
it's
you
just some
not?
random thing that popped in her head, or
I have come to think that it might be a troll. Like she might not have I was just some random person,
right.
and she might not have liked the songs. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. She might have thought that they were. I think of the name as like almost like a mall goth type thing where it's
It does seem mall goth. That's good.
right, and that was the aesthetic early on. So
Hot Topic, Springs Eternal. No, I'm joking.
yeah, have you ever listened to Lil Aaron?
Uh-uh.
Lil Aaron, he has a song
Okay.
called Hot Topic. You should look it up.
All right, I'm making note of that.
Yeah, he got a T-shirt deal with them because of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Actually, I bought a Depeche Mode T-shirt at Hot Topic at the mall like a month ago, so I can't really bitch too much about it. But
Yeah.
where else can I get? I guess there is the internet. They do have T-shirts on the internet. And by the way, if you want to check out Wicca's stuff, I do have the link below, and I put your merch site. I'm assuming that's the best one.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, limited run below, and you'll see that link if you want to check that out. And I've also in the link I've got a bunch of his videos. So all right, so let's talk about your influences. So you are growing up what, post 2000s? You're in high school post 2000s, right?
Yeah. I graduated high school in 2007, so
Okay.
I'm 29.
Oh, okay. So you're actually a little bit older than I expected. That's good. So I won't be totally talking about a bunch of crazy shit you've never heard of.
No, it's okay.
All right. So what got you interested in this? What's your first sort of inspirational music that you're like, I'm going to do that?
Well, when I was first buying CDs, like the first music that I was actively seeking out on my own when I was young, and I mean probably first or second grade, like I was really into the radio. I would always be listening to the radio. Um, so I was buying CD singles of like East Coast rap, like Puff Daddy,
Yeah.
Mace, Biggie, Busta Rhymes, stuff like that. I don't know if he's East Coast. I don't know where he's from, but um, that's what I was buying because my parents wouldn't let me get the actual CDs, of course, right? Like, because I'm like 8 years old. So I would buy the edited CD singles. And then when I started meeting other people that were into music around middle school, it was not cool for me to like rap, right? Like it was just, whatever. So like Blink 182 was the thing. Like that was it for that's what got me into like punk music and even underground music, really. Like
There's an interview that I did you might like where we talked about the occult influences in punk. You should check that out. It's right
yeah,
up
I've
your
heard
alley.
you mention that, and I meant to. I have a note to look it up because I'm assuming that you talked about it somewhere, and
Well, it was new to me because I mean I like some that kind of stuff, but I'm not a huge punk fan. But I had a couple buddies who were pretty heavy into the punk scene a while back, and they did some really good research on like the occult background to the punk scene and William Burroughs and all that kind of stuff. So that's worth checking out. But you know, that's funny. You reminded me of when I was in like 6th grade. I used to live in California back in the late 80s. And because my dad was in the Navy, then we moved back to Tennessee in like 1990. So California is usually like 20 years ahead. And so I was listening to a bunch of like early rap. And when I got back to Tennessee, nobody in Tennessee knew what rap was. They thought I was like this complete retard weirdo because I was playing Fresh Prince and Run DMC and shit like that. And they were like, "What is this?" Because everybody was listening to like redneck music in Tennessee. So so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what it was. That's where I got away from it. And then I played in bands and stuff like that. I always liked electronic music, and especially like I mean, even like going back to listening to the radio, I was talking to friends about this yesterday, but stuff like that weird Eurodance phase where like Eurodance broke into like top 40 radio in America. And like that, looking back, it's really strange, but like LaBouche or, you know.
What is love?
There you go.
Don't hurt me.
There you go. So it was that, like, so I got kind of back into that, just, you know, whatever. And, but when I was, you know, 18, 19, 20, it was Crystal Castles and like that, like Witch House scene.
I was going to ask you about Witch House. I could tell you're probably Witch House influenced.
Yeah, definitely. But that also had, like, I liked the upbeat stuff from that. So like I gravitated towards Crystal Castles specifically, and then Cold Cave and stuff. And I just wanted to do something electronic. Right. I didn't have rap in mind or anything like that. I don't think I'm a rapper or anything like that, but you know, that's kind of where this music falls into.
Right.
I didn't have that in mind. I just wanted to make keyboard music. So I was doing that for about 2 years or something, just keyboard loops and drum machines and stuff like that. And then, I started understanding how, I started finding people that were better at making instrumentals than I was, and I couldn't figure out how to make like a Witch House song. But I found people that could, and through Tumblr, a lot of Tumblr networking and stuff like that. And that's when I started getting beats from people, and that's kind of how it evolved into what it is now.
So were you using Ableton, or what were you doing?
Well, I mean, I was using GarageBand when I was first starting. Just, I had no idea that it would still be going on now. I didn't, you know, I thought it would just last for like a year or something, and then I'd start a new band.
Right.
But, now I use Ableton. Yeah.
So, and I want to add to listeners out there, I want to remind you that we will be taking Q&A later on. And as usual, I always split the Super Chats with the guests. So if you guys want to do some Super Chat questions, I will ask Wicca your questions, as long as they're not too preposterous or ridiculous. What was your first CD single that you remember? I'll tell you mine real quick. I was in the tape era. So the first tape that I got was Biz Markie, Pickin' Boogers. If you remember that.
No,
that's
I don't know that one. I know Biz Markie. I don't know that song.
Yeah, he has a song called Pickin' Boogers, and I was like, I don't know, 9 or 10. I was like, that's what I want to do, pick boogers and play music. But then there's and later on, the first CD single I got was "I'm Too Sexy for Your Car." Remember that?
Yeah, Right Said Fred.
Right Said Fred. Yeah, who actually listens to Boiler Room, by the way. They're big fans of our podcast, Boiler Room. But
how about
so what's your first CD single that you got?
My first CD single was "Victory" by Puff Daddy, Busta Rhymes, and Biggie. And I got a Mace one shortly after that. Feel So Good, I think.
Yeah, I bought the Mace, the first Mace when it came out. I loved it. I still play it. It's still on my playlist, by the way.
Is that Harlem World, or was there one before it?
The first one is the one that has all the hits that I know.
Okay.
The one with Feel So Good, and yeah, I think it's Harlem World. I think that's right.
I'm pretty bad with names. So those were the first singles. The first proper CD I bought, going back to Biz Markie, was Len, "Steal My Sunshine" is the hit, and "Can't Stop the Bum Rush" I think is the name of the album. And Biz Markie is on multiple songs on that album, and I stand by that album. It's good. That has like a weird Euro drum machine type and some hip hop. It's weird, but so yeah, that was the first like LP that I bought, but definitely like Biggie and Mace.
I've been listening to a lot of '90s stuff like that lately, like Sneaker Pimps.
Mm-hmm.
You know Sneaker Pimps?
Mm-hmm.
I found some old rare Sneaker Pimps that were like randomly put on YouTube. Anyway, what's on your playlist right now? Like if we were to hit play on your little podcast, what would come up?
Let's look. I'll open up Spotify right now.
This is exclusive.
There's an artist, Picture Plane, who just put out a new album on Monday. I'm on the album, but he was one of the people that around when I was into like Crystal Castles and stuff, he really had the most like witch house and Eurodance like mashup sound.
Mm-hmm.
With like, are you familiar with him at all? No, he's sings a lot about like dystopian futures and transhumanism. You might like him. I don't know.
What's the name again?
Picture Plane, Picture, and then Plane, Plane.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna make a note of that.
Yeah, his new album is called Degenerate. Now I'm on that album. I'm not plugging it. That's not what I'm trying to do.
Are you the degenerate?
I guess I'm the degenerate. Yeah. The single off it is BDSM. So know what you're getting into.
Inspired by 50 Shades of Grey.
There you go. Let's see. So it's Picture Plane, and then it's it's the new Ariana Grande album, Sweetener. It's good. My friend told me it was good, and he was right. And then I've been going back to like in high school, I liked the Libertines a lot. And like Pete Doherty was the one singer of that, and so I've been listening to them and Pete Doherty solo stuff and his band Baby Shambles, just like revisiting them. New stuff, I don't know. I don't listen to that much like new stuff. I don't know.
Are you a Beck fan? Because I was watching a lot of your videos and interviews. I got kind of a Beck vibe. Is that true or not?
I'm not a huge Beck fan, just out of ignorance of his catalog. Like I know he's cool and I know he's well regarded, and I have friends that are a little bit older than me who love Beck. Just not something I've ever dove into.
You would probably like a lot of his really older unreleased stuff that they eventually did kind of bootleg on CD. It's right up your alley. It's very similar to some of the stuff that I hear from you. So let me ask you about your first. When did you really start breaking into blowing up and stuff? Was it Providence? I'm not positive, but like when I Googled you after you tweeted about the book, that was the first one that came up. So that was kind of my intro to you. What was the first one that really got you some attention?
I'll tell you what, it was honestly a song I did. Well, I did a bunch of collabs that got me to where I am now. Early on, I did a Spooky Black collaboration that helped me out a lot. And then, so I started this group, Goth Boy Clique, and I don't know if you've researched that at all.
Yeah, I did.
So Lil Peep was one of our members, and I did 2 songs with him, and I mean that's definitely what got me to where I am now. Solo stuff, I have I put out an album called Secret Boy maybe 2 years ago now, and that was the first one that people seem to really like. And the title track from that, Secret Boy, is like probably my most played solo song on Spotify. That's what I go by. I don't know.
Right. So when I'm hearing Providence and you're talking about Pennsylvania, and this is what, like the Pennsylvania scene, or is this just about your whole background? I mean, you're from Scranton, right?
I'm from Scranton. That song's about Providence, Rhode Island, though, and
Right.
Just kind of a.
Well, the reason I was going to ask you that, I mean, I know that's, I mean, I look like a retard now, but I know that Providence is Rhode Island. But what I meant was, like, was the name chosen because of like the idea of Providence and synchronicity and that kind of stuff relating to like where you're going?
Yeah, that is it. Also, there's some like Lovecraft stuff
Right.
thrown in there, just thematically, nothing literally. Or I'm not channeling Lovecraft or whatever, claiming that he gave me those lyrics. I have family up there. My sister lives there. Providence is a lot like Pennsylvania, like especially the town where I'm from. Just very similar. I mean, all my songs are about girls, you know, they're all about love, essentially. I say that I make romantic occult ballads. So that's what I tell, like, you know, anyone.
That's a great line. That's probably like a killer game line right there. That's the best way to, I'm going to spit game from now on that way. I really like.
Good.
I make occult books and TV shows that are romantic, and
yeah,
I think it'll work. I think it did work. I got a pretty good babe out of it, I'd say. She's pretty hot, so I think it worked.
Good job. I feel like I did too. I forget your question. I'm sorry.
I did too.
It's okay.
So Providence, that was the first one that I saw from you, and then I'm thinking, all right, so there's an esoteric element to some degree. It's about girls, but it's not all your music's not about girls, because sometimes you talk about, like, I'm gonna turn off my computer, I'm gonna jump on top of you. Okay, so maybe that is about girls.
Yeah, but High Strangeness is a good one. That's right. That's like the Molgoth version of the esoteric, honestly. You know, it's very broad introductory concepts towards the weird and the occult. I sing about computers all the time because I'm interested in just the nature of them, and I'm interested in the internet and what it really is. And I feel like there's some sort of, I mean, I don't want to start talking about the connection between AI and spirituality or anything like that, or the idea of computers being ghosts, because I'm not really that well versed in it. But that's the stuff that I feel like most of the time when I'm talking about the occult and esoteric, or at least writing about it, I'm doing so in a way to help me understand it and figure out how it fits into my worldview. So, I mean, that line specifically, turn my computer off, I jump on top of you. That's about, you know, watching Netflix before you go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, that song's also about...
But it's about symbolism. I mean, you talk about...
Right. I mean, it's also about astral projection. And I'd have to, like, look up the lyrics, honestly. I sing it all the time, and I like, it's hard for me to recall them. But... yeah, I mean, it's a way to help shape the whole project, you know, to help give it a frame of reference, to help give it color schemes. Like if I'm and to help brand it. Like if I'm singing about Lovecraft, it's significantly easier for me to make a music video out of that song or fully realize what the song is, because again, it's not something that I fully grasp or can, you know, explain easily. And to just put it into an art form, you know, it keeps its abstract nature. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't necessarily call on me to have all the answers, if that makes sense. I had a lot of earlier songs about aliens, and if you looked up the lyrics, they'd probably be about, if you would think they were about girls or something like that, you know. But I don't know.
No, I think I know what you're saying. I mean, I wrote an essay a few years ago where I was trying to make a connection between like Renaissance era magic and the way that they viewed the possibility of creating a golem, and that actually did have an impact on the development of the computer. So people like Leibniz, who talked about the idea back in the time of the Enlightenment of creating a mimicked mirror machine that mimics the human mind, that it's a little logic machine, that would actually be instrumental in the formation of the computer. So there's something to what you're talking about, where there's this idea of a connection between like the esoteric and Pythagoreanism, geometry, mathematics, high level abstract mathematics, and the realm of spirit.
Yeah,
there's absolutely something to that.
Yeah, there's comic books played like a large part in this whole project too. Like I've always been reading comics like on a weekly basis. I go every Wednesday and buy them and stuff like that. And I finished Kirby's New Gods run, or Fourth World run, so it would be like Mr. Miracle, New Gods, Forever People, and Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. And like the mother box in DC Comics is this weird techno organic computer that the new gods of New Genesis and Apocalypse have some connection to, and they're in communication with it and seek advice from it, and also use it to teleport places. So there's a little bit of that in that song, High Strangeness, too. And in a lot of stuff, really.
Yeah.
Kirby is a strange man. And I don't know.
But you do some kind of slow, downbeat, I don't know what love is. Tell me about
that. What do you want to know?
What's the inspiration? Is that another girl?
I mean, I only have one girlfriend, so all my songs are really about my one girlfriend, and really they're just about myself, you know. And they're amped up to 11 in terms of melodrama. My life isn't as bad as my music seems, or is my Twitter.
Is that part of the mystique? Is it?
Well, if it is, it's gone now because I just revealed it. But,
we'll delete that part.
Yeah, no, there's just some songs that are just heavy emotional songs that, you know, I can't be talking about, you know, beings from other dimensions all the time, or spirits and stuff like that. I don't want to pin myself into a box with one or the other.
So Corinthiacs, what's that? What's the story behind
that? It's like spirit, demonic possession, inhabitation.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, I came up with that name a long time ago. It's just Corinthian, obviously, which is in like Marvel supervillain style. Just replace the last letter with an X, and it sounds cool. And I started saying that word in 2013 or 2014. I'm putting it in songs, like the name in songs, without ever really figuring out what it was, or without ever defining it. It's just something I said I would get to later and try and build a mythology within the music, so longtime listeners would have some sort of payoff.
Yeah, there's kind of like a Blair Witch vibe to the video. Did you have creative input on the video, or was that somebody else?
Yeah, I hate videos, which is why I have so few. I feel like every video is fake and looks fake. Not of my video, just every music video ever. So I did have some, but I mean, there was 2 directors for that, and we knew we wanted it to be dark, you know, True Detective season 1 style.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, and also it was kind of I was watching a lot of Manson videos, Marilyn Manson videos, and Nine Inch Nails videos and stuff, and they do those like close-ups on the face with the wind blowing and stuff. I wanted that, so yeah.
Yeah. Now, and I heard you mention in one of the interviews that you like Twin Peaks, or you mentioned Twin Peaks. Are you a David Lynch fan?
Yeah, I was hoping we would talk about this. I was gonna actually ask you if we just set time aside to talk about it, but I am, and I think that's how I found you. Was looking up, if it wasn't Twin Peaks, like analyses, it was Mulholland Drive, and I am a big Lynch fan. I bought a bootleg copy of like the Twin Peaks seasons 1 and 2 before they were re-released on DVD like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Just like someone burned them off the internet, you know, and really got into that. I had no idea what it was about. I thought it was like a spooky soap opera. That's what I had heard about it. And I guess it is, but it's also a pretty heavy show.
Right.
And,
no doubt. Yeah.
And I mean, when did season 3 finish? It was last year. Was that this year, or was it 2018 or 2017?
In end of 17, I guess.
17.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that helped influence a lot of the merchandise that came throughout 2018 and the album that'll be out in early 2019.
So did you have a thesis or a theory on the end of season 3 where Cooper takes Laura back to the house and you see the scream? Did you have any theory on that?
Man, I don't know what to make of it. It seemed like when Coop and Diane wake up in that motel room, and they're different people, right? I forget their names in it. But they wake up, he finds Laura, who's not Laura, she's someone else. I just assumed that was some sort of alternate timeline or dimension or something like that. And it seemed like, I mean, in the final 30 seconds, what happens? You hear Sarah faintly scream Laura's name, which was supposed to be when, like, that's like scene 1 of Twin Peaks season 1, episode 1, I'm assuming. Like
it is the pilot, yeah.
It is the pilot. Then I assume that when Sarah did that, Laura, or the woman who, you know, was not Laura or whatever, realized who she was and what was happening. I don't know if you're looking for a deeper analysis on that. There's a lot to unpack there with the Chalfont Tremont ownership of that house. And they were always my favorite characters. The
Chalfonts, yeah.
Yeah, the Chalfonts.
I won't say everything about what I think it was, because I put that into the new book that'll be out in December. So I did a pretty long analysis of season 3, but I do think that Lynch is kind of coming back to what you always see at the end of a David Lynch movie, typically like Lost Highway or Mulholland Drive, is eternal return. So I think that's basically that Cooper, even for his good intentions, he wasn't able to go back in time and alter things. You still have Laura imprisoned, and it's almost like, you know, the apocalypse is coming, because that's actually what, if you read the book, the Mark Frost book, that's kind of what it's all about, is the Babylon working and the Crowleyan idea of Jack Parsons and these different characters sort of intentionally invoking the eschaton, the end times, through their rituals. And actually the atomic bomb scenario is part of that ritual. It's all one big ritual aspect. So I really appreciated that episode, you know, where Lynch included that. I think it's episode 11 or 13, somewhere in there, where you have the Trinity, New Mexico site, and yeah, I think that's Laura's mom that gets possessed. I think that's who we're supposed to think that is, because the deity Jiao Dai, who is the deity that possesses somebody to bring about the end times in this mythology, it seems to come through this portal of the ritual working of the Trinity Mexico bombings.
Yeah, I think they make it clear in the second Mark Frost book, that the one that you referenced, that is Sarah, and that she grew up, that her and Leland might have met around that time in New Mexico, is it, right?
Yeah, Trinity site, New Mexico, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so I want to remind the listeners too that I'm going to split the super chats with Wicca Phase. You're talking to one of the biggest up and coming musicians right now. His stuff is blowing up, it's hot. And if you want to ask any questions, feel free. I'll read those super chats later. We do have some so far. But what were you going to say? I didn't interrupt you. Go ahead.
Well, now I don't know. I think it was episode 8, where you see that scene. The woodsmen are really interesting in that season. Uh, I mean, man, it was heavy. And Fire Walk with Me was, I mean, that was my favorite Twin Peaks thing before, before this
Yeah.
came out. Not that there was so much to choose from.
And that's one of the keys to understanding season 3. I really like that he went back to Fire Walk with Me, because a lot of people thought, oh, Fire Walk with Me was derided when it came out. The critics hated it. And Lynch didn't care. He just went back to it. I appreciated that.
Yeah. What I wanted to ask you was, what I wanted to bring up was that Coop seems to fail a lot. And I mean, at the end of season 2, he fails in having imperfect faith, or, faulty, false sense of courage or something like that when he goes into the lodge. It seems like he fails at the end of season 3 too, in a major way. It seems like something went wrong too when he's driving with Diane and they stop at a motel.
Yeah.
And you see another Diane. Again, I don't want to get too much into it because I know you wrote about it, but I don't know. There's a lot to unpack with season 3. I look forward to reading what you
I think
about it.
I honestly, I'm not 100% positive what's going on with the Diane scenario. I mean, she's obviously part of the Blue Rose. She's obviously one of the tulpas that gets created, one of the mental fake beings that can be created. And I'm not sure what we're supposed to think is going on when they do it. But I do think that regardless of that scene, it is Coop trying to alter the history with Laura, which he seems to do, because we see the pilot and we see the body of Laura disappear.
Yeah.
So it seems like it's successful, but then when she gets home and it's the Chalfant house, and she screams, I think it may also just be left open for a season 4. There, Lynch has said that he's open to that possibility. So we may just get a season 4 and more details. So it may actually be up in the air on purpose. That's what I would tend to think. But I think that one of the keys to understanding the woodsman that you mentioned is there's an old picture of Crowley when he's doing like mountaineering, and he looks just like one of the wood, like curiously exactly like the woodsman. So I kind of think that we're supposed to make a rough connection there between him and these woodsmen, who are basically just, I think, demonic entities that have sort of walked through the open portal, because they really appear, when the atomic stuff happens. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you probably knew that. That's kind of obvious, but I don't know. I don't know what to make of the two Dianes. I mean, it's kind of, I think Lynch has left it open, because I read a lot of analyses. I tried to get to the bottom of that, and I couldn't find any solid answers.
Yeah, me neither. I could talk about Twin Peaks all night, so we can move on if you like.
Well, what's your other favorite Lynch film?
It's Mulholland Drive, definitely. I like Mulholland Drive more than I like Fire Walk with Me. I don't have a ton of insight into it, or I haven't done too much research into it aside from. I mean, you read about it in your book, I think.
Yeah, there's a chapter on there.
Yeah. And I think it's pretty self-explanatory what's happening there.
Yeah, I think so too.
In terms of the Hollywood, cults and how they recruit people and stuff like that.
She seems to dissociate. She's schizophrenic, and we're seeing kind of the view of a girl who maybe made it to a certain level and then fell apart. And so she's kind of got dissociative. But I like it's almost like David Lynch tells stories from the perspectives at times of the dissociative alters.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what he's doing in that one.
And I think it's the same in Lost Highway with the Pete character, because Pete seems to be a dissociative idea in the head of Fred, the musician at the beginning. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's been a while since I watched Lost Highway. I think that might have been the first Lynch movie I watched.
As I've gotten older, I mean, I used to really like Mulholland Drive. I mean, I still do. I think it's a great movie. But as I've gotten older, I kind of think Lost Highway is maybe a better movie than Mulholland Drive. Yeah, because Mulholland Drive was supposed to be a TV show, and there's you can kind of tell that they were going to try to do this, adapt it into TV at certain points in the film, I think.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, We got way off on David Lynch. That's cool though. So
Yeah.
Are there any other esoteric Lynch films that you enjoy, or other esoteric directors that you're big fans of?
I'm not a big movie guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm really not. And I don't watch that much TV, to be honest. I watch documentaries and like listen to interviews with people and podcasts and stuff like that. So,
well, most movies nowadays are shit anyway. So if you don't mind me asking, like, how you get to my book then? If you,
I think it would have been either. I try to think about this. It was either through Twin Peaks analysis, just looking it up.
Yeah.
Honestly, it might have been anything you wrote about the Dark Knight trilogy.
Oh,
the Batman trilogy. That one, I mean, I don't know. For some reason, I always think of that as one of I don't know. I assume that you are an authority on that in my head because I Googled it once and you came up, and
that works.
So it might be that, but I bought your book pretty pretty soon after finding your blog. So yeah, I think that's how it was. And then I got out of I don't know, I just wasn't doing too much research into anything for a little while. And then I must have found Greg Carlwood's podcast, the Higher Side Chats, and was reminded to check out your site because it had been a while. And yeah. And then I listened to a few episodes of Boiler Room too.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So, what in terms of Dark Knight, have you watched any other Christopher Nolan movies? Because he has a lot of, like Jungian, pretty deep esoteric stuff in some of his films. Inception is good.
Yeah, Inception. I saw a few times, and I saw Interstellar a few times. Just because there's a lot to unpack with both of those. Interstellar is really interesting. And it's probably stuff that you've mentioned before, but I've thought a lot about why the world is the way it is in that movie. Why are all the crops dead? And it doesn't seem like it's that far in the future, and I don't think that's just I don't think it's a happenstance thing that it made its way into a Christopher Nolan movie.
Right.
Well,
you're as a comic book fan, do you think his adaptation of Batman is good? Are you a fan of that, or do you think it was not that great?
I thought it was a little boring. I thought the first one was very boring. That's not to say it didn't tell a good story. I just don't think it did enough to keep my attention, and I'm no expert or anything like that.
Well, did you know the Ra's al Ghul character that's based on Crowley? That's based on like a Far Eastern influenced secret society in Crowley.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah.
And then it's strange because it doesn't seem to get into that much of that during the second movie, and I don't know if it was just to second movie was sexier with the Heath Ledger Joker character. There was a lot going on in that second movie. By the third one, I was over it, and I can't even really remember any sort of like overarching theme for the third one. Bane was in it, right? The Bane movie.
Yes, it was.
There was a hint of like Occupy protests.
There was,
right?
Yes.
Okay, it's kind of coming back to me now.
Occupy Wall Street is going to die.
What do you think about Tom Hardy?
He's in some good movies. I mean, he's all right as an actor, I guess. The only thing I think of when I think of Tom Hardy is that goofy Bane voice.
Yeah,
I enjoy doing. But Actually, I kind of like his Inception role pretty.
Me too.
Tom Hardy role, but
yeah, I thought he was pretty cool in that movie.
yeah, that gets into that was one of the first analyses that I wrote that kind of got a little bit of traction. I think Simon Pegg shared it, and I got a little bit of traffic on that, and that's kind of when I thought, well, I could do something with this, and actually maybe eventually, turn this into a book or something, and things snowballed from there. But actually, you mentioned, I think in one of your tweets, that we did a TV show, Hollywood Decoded, for a season, and I am kind of proud of the 2 Batman episodes that we did in there, because I agree with you about your analysis of Batman. It's kind of goes downhill. But we actually did uncover quite a bit of interesting Gnostic, Nietzschean, and even at times like Jungian elements, where this is a Scarecrow. Who's the Cillian Murphy character? He's
Scarecrow.
Yeah, he mentions at one point that he's going to drug people, and it's because he's studied Jungian psychology, and I think he even mentions MK Ultra, which is kind of bizarre, because that is an interesting theme throughout the series, because Batman himself undergoes, I think it's in part 2 or 3, the initiation into the League of Shadows, and he's has to go through a drug phase, and then the Liam Neeson character in the beginning is going to drug the whole city, and then I don't think there's anything to do with drugs in the third one, but there is these, it's kind of peppered with these elements of that kind of stuff. Did you see Mandy?
No, Nicolas Cage. No, I'm going over a friend's house tomorrow night to watch it.
Yeah, you're gonna really, that's gonna blow your mind, because that's like, I watched it last night and I was already like making my notes for the analysis, because it's like Hellraiser meets David Lynch meets like 1980s metal band cover. It's crazy. But it also has a lot of esoteric themes in it too. So
that's cool.
You'll like that. But where are we at? Let me get my notes here. How did you hook up with Little Peep? Let's change the topics here. Let's get into the rap scene. And what did you think about XXX and that whole situation? Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I can comment on it. I met Peep through a producer that me and a lot of my friends work with, named Nedarb. And I mean, he connects everyone, really. He's a good networker. But he sent me a song to get on that Peep would eventually get on. He was trying to connect us. I said no. And then just because I think it had a postal service sample. And I thought it was too obvious or something, so I just didn't. And that song became like a massive hit, a massive Lil Tracy hit. And then Peep moved out to LA and was just hanging out with a lot of my friends. We had started Goth Boy Click a year or two before and didn't plan on adding anyone, but there was some other people who were adamant about adding him. So
have you heard my Boomer Tune song?
No, I might have saw a screenshot of a video. Did you do a video or something?
I did, yeah.
No, does it sound like Lil Peep?
Well, I mean, no, it sounds preposterous, but I was joking. If you were talking adding another person, do you need a boomer in there with doing the boomer songs? But anyway, go ahead.
That's cool. So yeah, that's how we met. We had a Goth Boy Click show coming up about a week before we put Peep in the group. I talked to him on the phone. He was cool. He was genuine. And I mean, there's a lot of fake shit in this scene. It's really easy to dye your hair and record a song and put it online in an hour, and you're an internet rapper, right? So I'm leery of almost everyone who does that. And I was skeptical of him too, but he was just authentic and obviously a real person and driven and stuff. So we put him in. He was probably bigger than all of us at that time anyway. It's not like he needed us or anything. But we did that. We did a song shortly after that. That was Absolute in Doubt. And then did another song, Avoid, which Doves, who's another Goth Boy Click member, is also on. And then I didn't see him too much because I live in Pennsylvania. They all live in LA. So I did the first 2 weeks of his last tour, of Peep's last tour, the Come Over When You're Sober tour.
No crazy tour stories? What's the craziest thing you've seen? Can you not say?
No, I can't. We were on a tour bus and we each had our own bunk. And I go to bed early, so I think I was asleep for most of the crazy.
You got a curfew, like a boomer curfew?
Yeah, I mean, I go to bed at 11 o'clock when I'm home. So yeah, no, nothing too crazy. I mean, fans are crazy. Like, people couldn't go anywhere without being mobbed. We went out for breakfast one day in a city that we are not from, and posted a picture of us being there, and people were showing up, like teenage girls, just to see him, not like me, really. For him, like, really strange.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I mean, and then of course he died at the end of that tour. His he was signed to a management company called First Access Entertainment. And they're kind of like a record label. They provide like funding for artists that they will recoup, you know. They sold his catalog to Columbia Records, who had also just signed X.
Interesting.
So I believe that's how that that song came about. But, you know, I don't know what to say about X because I didn't know him. And, you know, all I know about is, you know, you read about stuff. You read, you know, there's tons of articles about what people said he was like, whether or not it's true or not. I don't know. So I don't know. The situation is messy. I joked about it. I did a documentary. I was interviewed for a documentary about Pete, and I jokingly said, as long as there's not a posthumous Pete X collab. This was before X died. I was like, we're fine. I'll be happy with whatever they do with his music, you know, as long as it comes out. And about a week later, that they announced that song, and it came out today. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Nuts. It's hard for me to speak on it because I didn't know X, but I can't imagine that, you know, I don't know. I just can't imagine that. It's weird because I heard that song a million times without X on it. And it was a good song. So I don't know. It's kind of a sore subject. I'm not afraid to talk about it. I'm just not really sure how I feel about it, or if I have any sort of reason to even be upset about it.
Right.
You know.
Well, we got about 15 minutes here left. I don't want to keep you too long, but let me ask you about your reading interest, because you did mention some books. I think that first tweet where you mentioned my book, which I really appreciate, by the way. Yep. You mentioned some other books. What have you read that's really stuck in your mind, stuff that you would recommend other people to read? Because anytime that somebody actually reads, which I appreciate, and not many people still read, but I always ask people, like, what are your favorite books? What books would you recommend? Yeah. And you don't have to say my book is if you don't want to. That's okay.
No, I mean, I had already said that your book was one of the ones that I would recommend. So it's not, you know, whatever. I'm not just saying it. But I think Dave McGowan's Laurel Canyon book is really good because it's, I feel like that's a good introductory book for anyone who might want to see the a real world basis for conspiracy or social engineering or something like that. I think that book lays it out pretty well. Let's see. I just finished, and I forget. I didn't even pay attention to who wrote the book, but I think it's called Sex and Rockets. It's a Jack Parsons book.
Jack Parsons book, yeah.
Yeah. That one's really interesting. I'm really interested in Jack Parsons. It just seems like a weird dude, and I mean, if you're looking for a cross section of government and military and the esoteric and the occult, it's him. And I think his role gets downplayed outside of the conspiracy or occult world.
Absolutely.
Right? I don't really understand that. So those are two good ones. Let me think. Peter Levenda wrote a book about Lovecraft. I think it's called The Lovecraft Code.
Yeah.
I like that one. Hold on, I'm sorry. I just have to answer this text. Sorry, my girlfriend's my girlfriend's sister hurt her arm and she's in the hospital now. It's not an issue for this. But yeah, those are some books that I would recommend. I was into Jim Mars for a little bit, but I don't know. I hear that he spoke at a lot of Scientology events, or at least a few.
He was a character. I got to meet him one time when I spoke at a thing, and he walked in and he was like, "Hey, Jay, good to see you in person." And then he talked, and then he like jetted out. Like he wasn't interested in talking to anybody. He was a character. I'm not talking bad about him. He's like a short guy, and he always wore his cowboy hat. Just a strange character, but yeah, he was interesting. He was actually the first interview I ever did was Jim
Oh, really?
Mars. Yeah, and then he died. It was pretty crazy. But
he didn't die that long ago, right? I think
no,
last year.
Yeah, last year. But
yeah. Anyone who seems like they're on coast to coast too much makes me skeptical. You know, I
got invited on my second time. Does that mean I'm bullshit now?
No, I think once you're on your 10th or 12th time, I start to get nervous about why public radio would allow you to be on so much if your truths are so profound. You know,
I think the first time that I got on it was because I had the book and the publisher had an in with Coast to Coast, and I don't think George Norrie really wanted to do it because he was like, all right, so I got like 45 minutes or something like towards the end of the night, and then the second time that I was on, it was the guest host. It was Richard Syrett, who is not the normal host. So
yeah, if Coast to Coast asked me to be on, I would do it. I'm not hating on you for that. I knew you were on there too, but I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, it's like you don't want to turn down gigs because, especially if you sell your own books, you got to like market them. So, but, or I'm sure I don't know how it goes with your music, but I mean, I'm sure get a cut from your merch and all that, surely.
A cut of my merch?
No, I'm saying are you independent or you're on a label, right?
Yeah, I just signed to an independent label, so I'm essentially I just have to give them 3 albums. I can do whatever I want. And,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a good deal.
Right.
So no, I mean merch is how I make my living in streaming. I worked a marketing job until January of this year. I was writing web copy and doing SEO stuff.
So now you got to go full-time music.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I did want to ask you a couple last questions before we come to the end here, and I'll read a few super chats. But do you remember in that tweet that you sent where you mentioned my book, you mentioned another book like Henry somebody, and other people in the text were saying, "Oh, that's a really good book," and I had never heard of it, so I wanted to check it out. Do you remember what it was?
No, let me look. Henry,
or maybe something with an H. I can't remember, but if you're listening, you can check out the link to get Wicca's songs and merch. You can check out his stuff, see if you like it. I think you will. It's pretty sweet. It's got a good vibe to it.
Oh, was it Libra by Don DeLillo?
That's it, Libra.
I'm sorry.
I don't know why I said Henry, but
that's okay. I think that's what I think that's what got me into conspiracy stuff, was that book, and I like Don DeLillo a lot. Yeah,
I'll write that down.
It's a JFK. It follows Lee Harvey Oswald.
Okay.
With the idea that he was somehow like intercepted or geared, geared towards, put in the position throughout his life of becoming the person that they would pin the assassination on. And I don't think Don DeLillo is a conspiracy author. He writes fiction and stuff, but
okay.
Yeah, I had to read it for college.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's good.
So Troy Sampson, $10. I heard you explain the minor prophets like Micah. Is there a book that you would suggest? I can't think of a specific book on minor prophets, so I'm sorry, Troy. I'll try to, in the next video that I do, if I talk about prophecies, I'll try to think of a book that would help you. Jimmy Jack, I Love Lamp. Is that? I don't know what that is. What are you talking about?
Saturday Night Live, or Will Ferrell says it somewhere. Anchorman, maybe.
Yeah, I'm just getting trolled, but
yeah.
All right. So Wicca is. When are you touring? What do people need to check out to find? You got tour dates on the site there?
Yeah, I just announced a U.S. tour today. I'm going to Europe at the end of October. It'll be my second time there this year. So I have 5 UK shows and then a few mainland Europe shows. I'll be there for 2 weeks, late October, early November. Then I have almost full US. I started in Florida, and it's the day after Thanksgiving.
I'm in Florida. Where are you playing?
Tampa, I believe. Where are you?
St. Augustine.
I don't know where that is.
It's a good ways away, but
if you want to come, let me know. But yeah, so it's Tampa, goes throughout the South, up the West Coast, and then ends in Chicago. So pretty much everywhere except the Northeast. And then I have some songs and videos coming out to close out the year, and my first official LP, I guess, will be out in February of 2019.
You said this is your second trip to the UK?
Yeah, I was there in May.
I was there right around that time too. It was my first trip. I'd never been. I got asked to speak at an event in the UK. I thought it was pretty cool. It was different. What'd you think?
It was different.
I'd never been.
It was different. It was hectic. I had never gone, in the sense that it was exhausting traveling, because I was traveling a lot, and we were like carrying our merchandise everywhere and stuff, and taking trains and planes.
That's what I had to do. Yep.
Yeah, it's I mean,
carting my book around to sell it at a speaking event.
Yeah, it's nice to be somewhere that feels old, and important. So I like that about Europe and the UK.
Right. So tour dates are on wiccaphase.limitedrun.com. You'll see the link down below. There's his merch there too, and his discography. Definitely want to check that out. And I want to thank you, man. This has been a great interview. I hope you had a good time talking. Thank you for recommending the book, and I've been checking out your stuff. Bought all your albums actually after you tweeted it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. Hopefully we can link up again.
Yeah, dude.
Maybe after your book comes out, talk about what you really think about.
I'll send you a copy of part 2 and see what you think.
Thank you.
All right, cool, man. You have a good night.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, Jeff.
All right.
Bye.